What struck me immediately about the Phoenix Lights incident was the sheer number of witnesses. The availability of the witnesses. This was peak time for the comet Hale-Bopp that seemed to come out of nowhere a few months earlier. It brought thousands of people out of their homes in the early evening to see what the comet would look like as it got closer and closer.
And when you think about thousands of people living along the most populated corridor of Arizona, outside on a very clear, quiet night, looking up purposely in the sky for a glimpse of the Hale-Bopp comet, when the phenomena passed right over their heads, 30 miles an hour. Some people did see it take off at a tremendous speed.
I think they went out of their way to let us know that they're here. That was a parade that came right through Sky Harbor airspace, protected airspace, right through downtown Phoenix.
When we first started getting the calls, it was more in the north area of Phoenix, and as the calls progressed, it was traveling central Phoenix and south Phoenix. Everyone described it the same way. It was 5 lights or 7 lights, V or wedge-shaped. It was low. They said very low. It was huge. People said it was a mile wide. Some people saw the lights attached to the V-shaped craft, but most of them did not see the craft. They just saw the lights in the V-shape. The one call that stands out most is a lady that lived on the base of South Mountain, and she said it flew literally over her head. She could see the craft, and I remember her saying it was silent, couldn't even hear a hum, and that one really, I really pictured the craft from her description.
The objects that were witnessed were clearly, they were intending to be seen in terms of appearing over mass, the concentration of population of the whole state, coming down I-17 virtually from stem to stern.
We're talking the entire state of Arizona, from as early as 5:30 p.m. all the way till as late as 2 o'clock in the morning. It was not one event or 2 events, but it was many events.
10,000 people approximately witnessed this, one of the largest experiences of this sort ever recorded.
The Phoenix Lights phenomenon didn't seem to be falsifiable in any way. It was being validated by most everybody that saw it.
We had hundreds of calls. They were all saying the same thing. You could tell they weren't on drugs or drunk. They weren't kooks. They were legitimate people calling. We just couldn't believe it. Nothing like this has ever happened. I worked there 24 years. Never, ever had calls like this, ever.
We found quickly that there was a complete cross-section in the Phoenix Lights witnesses of our society, from truck drivers to attorneys, doctors, lawyers, aerospace people, military.
Air traffic controllers on duty who could see the lights but not see them on radar.
We all were swamped with the strange lights in the sky calls. There were about 15 of us, and they all said about the same. We just said the same thing. We didn't know what to say. I mean, it never happened before. And, you know, we aren't trained in asking UFO questions, so we just tried to reassure them that, you know, we're doing what we can, which the officers are aware of it. I said, all right, the police helicopters are up, so we're doing what we can do.
Just from what you read in the press accounts, I think they profoundly affected a lot of people.
If you could have heard their voices, they just were astounded. When they saw those lights, they knew it wasn't something of this earth. It wasn't flares, it wasn't a helicopter, it wasn't anything they'd ever seen before. It was totally not of this earth.
My emotion was that of just kind of wonderment and trying to figure out, what am I looking at? What am I seeing here?
I wasn't frightened. I was just in awe of it because it was so abnormal.
I don't remember anyone being frightened. They were just amazed and excited and like unbelievable what's going on. They just wanted to know what is going on. You know, what is that? Do you know? There, you know, usually when you call the police, you get answers, and we didn't have answers for them because we didn't know either.
None of us was apprehensive about what we were seeing. This was the very interesting part looking back on it, and I especially was very, very intrigued and excited with the idea that this is something miraculous that's happening right now.
This was a planned event. It was not accidental. It was very well orchestrated, to say the least, even an elegant production, if you will.
I was looking at the newspaper to see if there was any information on the strange lights in the sky. I found a very small article where it quoted a Phoenix police spokesperson who said the 911 center only got a few calls on the matter. And I thought, this is ridiculous. So that night when I went into work, I talked to my supervisor and I asked her, what gives? You know that's not true. She said, I know, but I have no idea, why they said that. And I was just thinking to myself, oh, the cover-up begins already.
After I heard all of this over the next couple of months, I thought, something really strange has happened, and I want to know what it is.
It was Jim De La Tosa that suggested to a producer that was interviewing us for the Phoenix Lights that if they wanted to try to get a public official to make a statement, they should just go down to City Hall and see if they could corner someone. Well, they happened to catch Frances Barwood when she was on her way into a city council meeting.
As I was going into the meeting, I was stopped by a reporter, and she had with her a TV cameraman and a microphone man, and they started asking me about these lights that went over Phoenix. And I thought something had just happened, and I said, when did this happen? And she said, well, it was actually March 13th. And she said, we asked the city what it was, if they could find out, and the answer from the mayor's office was, we don't have UFOs over Phoenix. And I thought that was a pretty strange thing, being that nobody had said it was a UFO. They just wanted to find out what it was. So I went into the meeting, and came my turn, and I said there were these reporters, the reporter outside, and had asked some questions about these lights that went over Phoenix last March 13th, and could we find out what it was?
And she thought it was a fair question, was asked of her, and she wanted to know herself, and she asked the question in chambers, and got quite an interesting reaction.
Everybody just kind of turned around and looked at me like, why did you ask that? And it was like this silence. And I felt kind of uneasy, and then one of the other council members made some kind of a joke, and they went on. They didn't assign me 2 staff members. They didn't say who was going to look into it. They didn't say who was going to get back to me. And I thought that was really unusual. After the meeting was over, one of the assistant city managers came up to me and said, you shouldn't have asked that question. And this is the first I heard about it. I mean, nothing else was ever discussed with me at any point. And I said, why? And he said, well, because it's something that they don't want to deal with. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, the mayor's office didn't want to have to make any kind of a statement. They already issued a statement, and it just didn't want to have to go into it. And I thought this was, so unusual. Something flies over our airspace, flies over our airport's airspace, is seen by pilots and flight crew and tower crew and everything, and they are afraid for me to bring up this question. When this all started, the reason that I asked the question about this incident that happened on March 13th, 1997, which has come to be known as the Phoenix Lights, was because I thought, this is a public safety issue, and we need to know whatever it was in case it comes back, in case, it happens again, or in case there's a danger to the people or buildings or whatever, because we have antennas that are high. And I couldn't understand the negative reaction that I got for asking this, when I thought that was, to me, a perfectly innocent question.
Well, as she was pilloried in the press and made fun of, the positive effect, however, was that hundreds of people came out of the woodwork and made phone calls to her office and her home.
My answer machine at work totally filled up. Since they couldn't get any more calls into my office, they started calling other council members' office, leaving messages for me. They called the mayor's office, leaving messages for me. We estimate we got several thousand phone calls. We decided to call back every single one of them. Over the next couple of months, I personally talked to over 700 people. Everybody but one, everybody but one told the exact same story. And the one was the one that they publicized, which was a kid who said he saw they were airplanes. Well, when you have like 700 to 1 saying this was not airplanes, I had active military, retired military, police officers, firemen, Little League coaches that were out that night with the whole Little League saw it, the parents saw it, people jogging, people shopping.
That was really an important single event in opening up the case for us was Frances Barwood, and I give her a lot of credit for her courage, especially holding forth and holding up through all the criticism that she got.
I believe she was very courageous, and it's going to take more people like her and like Dr. Lin, the author of The Phoenix Lights, coming out and lending credibility and lending their name to a phenomenon that I believe is very real and needs to be studied.
Wrote a letter to Senator McCain. Senator McCain sent his letter